Hi. I want to give some personal stories about what a complete mess I made for many, many years. I'd love to be able to give you a little bit of BS and tell you that it was for a very short period in my life, but it's simply not true. For many, many years, I simply did not understand the importance of no. I was a massive people pleaser. I was traumatized and terrified by many, many extremely unpleasant things that happened to me. And the reason why I bothered to share this is because I now know, after 40 years of clinical experience and working with people really since I was about, actually people talk to me since I was tiny, but professionally, at the beginning of my career, I guess it started about 17. So I have learned from listening to many, many, many people that most of us, sooner or later, nearly 99.9% of people living all over the world in all sorts of different circumstances are having actually quite similar experiences. On the one hand, it's unique to us, and the way we respond possibly is unique. But actually, if you physically cut us, the majority of us will bleed. Blood will come out of a wound. And if you cut us emotionally, the majority of us bleed emotionally. So many people have extremely traumatic periods in their lives for a myriad of reasons. But interestingly, if you boil down the majority of the tricky dynamics and the tricky situations and the traumas that we go through, it's often people still being quite young but beginning to be in adult bodies, but they still have not learned the difference between yes and no. So I can only share my reality honestly, and I'm going to keep this brief. I definitely was someone that hadn't got a clue what my no was and what my yes was. I didn't know what it was like to feel it in my body. And I actually grew up with some people who it didn't matter how clearly I said my no, because most children actually do come in knowing their yes and their no, and then experiences teach them how unsafe it is to have the no. Now, I was one of those kids. Even though I had some absolutely glorious upbringing, I also had the opposite of that. And so when I said no, that was, in some people's minds, the chance to go forward and go right over my boundaries. So I had to learn very fast that the only way to stay safe was to not have boundaries. I kept a boundary inside my own heart and being, because otherwise I wouldn't be as well as I am today. But on the outside, I had to keep on saying yes, because that was the only way to protect myself. So you can imagine growing up what an unbelievable muddle I ended up making for years of relationships, situations, communications. I was absolutely all over the place and didn't know immediately what part I was playing in the dynamics all around me, until I absolutely found the willingness and the courage and the tenacity and the humility to go, hold on a minute. There is something within me that I can change and I'm willing to change. So I wanted to honestly share that, because I think there aren't enough people talking honestly about what a mess most of us make of growing up. And most of us don't necessarily grow up. I don't think I've grown up yet, but I'm willing to keep on going at it. And because being alive is a privilege for me in particular anyway, and to have the facilities within myself to be willing to humbly keep on getting better at being human is, I think, an adventure. So I just want to share that with you and see what your experiences are of being able to say yes and no very clearly. I become a far safer person and practitioner by having gone through all those years where I was absolutely useless at just those two simple words. My yes wasn't a straightforward, clear yes, and my no wasn't a straightforward no. Now, caveat for this. Sometimes I find myself absolutely still making mistakes. Now, what I personally do is when I've said yes to someone, but really I need to say no, I either go back and change it, or I become willing to make it an absolute yes, because otherwise it's not fair on that other person. That's for another little video, but I hope you enjoy this, and please join in with me in the adventure of actually not being very good at being human, but we can all get stronger and better at it together if we're all humble enough to go, I'm not very good at this yet. Take care. Bye.